Welcome back to the Barrel Proof Baseball Podcast. Today, I'm releasing my personal most anticipated video thus far. I've been trying to reach out to people in baseball and whiskey and find a marriage between the two of them because, a lot of baseball coaches and players like whiskey, and a lot of whiskey people are big baseball fans. So there's kind of a natural marriage there that has been fun. And, sometimes it's not there. And so what? You're still going to hear some really cool stories from people in each industry. And, I was kind of thinking about, is there a way for me to use my, we'll call it platform, so to speak, with having a podcast and hopefully having, some sort of an audience that is, interested in similar things, and kind of wanted to branch out a little bit. So a few weeks back, I was sitting around and I thought to myself, man, it'd be really fun to invite somebody on that's not necessarily in whiskey or baseball. Maybe they have an interest in both. And so I was thinking, and I happened to go on Instagram. One of the first posts that I saw was from Jim Lindberg, who was the lead singer of Pennywise, which is my favorite band ever. And I thought, I'm going to send him a message and just ask him if he would be interested in coming on. I got a response right back, said, yeah, man, sounds cool. Let's do it. Here's my email. And, so I had a momentary freak out and, sent an email. Had a couple back and forths, and, we set a time and date, and lo and behold, we sit down and have an opportunity to interview the lead singer from my favorite band ever that I've seen probably 24 times. And I was so excited for this. I can't even begin to describe my excitement to have this Zoom call with this guy that is literally my favorite singer ever. And here's where I'm going to equate this to. And this is where some people are going to be like, yeah, it doesn't, compare. And it does for me, because this is the equivalent for me personally of my dad sitting down talking to Mick Jagger. Okay. Now, again, you can say, well, Pennywise and Rolling Stones are not the same. They're not. But that the guy that sings the songs that I relate most to, sitting down having a conversation with me is an absolute blast. I mean, I'm not a big let's go up and say hi to people or celebrities or whatever if you see them out in public. Most people I really don't care about. I've got three people that I would literally walk up to and say hi to. The first one was Jim Thome, which I got a chance to do at the Phoenix airport, and he was unbelievably nice. The second one is Jim Lindberg, that's who my conversation's with today. Same thing, unbelievably nice. The third one, The Rock, if you're listening, let's do it. But so far I'm 2 for 2 with people that I would love to meet or talk to, that have been, everything you really hope for them to be. Somebody that you may look up to or respect, or, just somebody that you find interesting and somebody that you hold in high regard. I just think about how much it would suck to really want to meet somebody or get an opportunity to talk with somebody, and they were just awful. They were terrible to you. No fun. No, somebody that after you met them, you were let down by meeting a person you wanted to meet. Jim Lindberg was just so incredibly kind. You don't know what kind of answers you're going to get, because this is kind of a weird platform to have a conversation on. You're face to face, somebody you don't know. And here I am, just a fan of his band. And, that conversation could have gone very short and very abrupt. And it wasn't. The answers he gave were so great. They were so thought out and authentic and genuine, and everything that you would hope the conversation would be. That's how this went. This was not this wasn't a one word answer. It was digging a little bit deeper. It was getting into some questions that hopefully, from a fan perspective that I wanted to know, and maybe from another perspective of people who listen to this that might be into baseball or whiskey or both or neither, but they find a way to take the things that he says in this conversation and you interject that into your life, such as dealing with people in your band. It's not always fun and sunshine and rainbows all the time. You're going to have bad days. You're going to have days where you go, dude, I cannot see you. I need a break from you. There's going to be good times. There's going to be bad times. There's going to be all sorts of things. And ultimately, you're working together to create a good product, whether it's whiskey, whether it's baseball, whether it's a punk rock band, it doesn't matter. You're working with a group of guys who a lot of times are most likely going to be very strong-minded, um, and have opinions, and it's not always easy. And he talks about that. He talks about when he left the band briefly, and how that process went, and this process of, what's it like to write a song? How do you do it? What do you do on a day that you've got a concert? You've got a show that night. What's that day look like? Just some fun things, and some cool information that I was curious about with some of the songs, and really just grateful. And to top it off, we got to talk Dodger baseball, his excitement for winning the World Series, his favorite player. We got to take a shot of whiskey. So it was really, from my perspective, for as nervous as I was to have this conversation, it was awesome. And it was something that I really appreciate. He took almost an hour and a half of his time to have this chat with me. And we made it through 2 technical difficulties, and just an absolute blast. I'm probably a bigger fan now than I was, even beforehand. So I appreciate Jim and his time and his authentic answers. And I hope you guys check this out, and I hope you enjoy this conversation, because this was certainly a highlight for me, and one that I think is going to be difficult for me to top from my own personal perspective. And as you know, this is all about me. So I was really grateful for this conversation. Just so appreciative of the time that Jim took to talk with me, to give answers that were so well thought out and so real. And just from a fan's perspective, to get to meet a person that you look up to, somebody that you've enjoyed watching, you've enjoyed their career, you've enjoyed their music. I mean, Pennywise, for me, like, this was the soundtrack of, middle school, high school, college. Like, this was a huge part. I've been listening to Pennywise since my first tape in 1991. This was really a lot of fun for me, and I hope you enjoy this conversation. Check out Pennywise if you've not listened to their music. You really should. They make great music. It's hard, it's fast, it's positive, and it's just awesome. Everything about it's great. And I think, might not be for everybody, but if you're into it, you're going to get a lot out of it. You're going to get a lot out of their lyrics. I think you're going to get a lot out of this conversation. So enjoy this. This was a lot of fun for me. Right. Okay, Jim Lindberg, thank you so much for jumping on here with us for this call with me, man. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
Right on. It's good to be here. Good to be seen, even if it's on the Zoom call as usual these days.
Yeah, right. Tell me a little bit about yourself, pre-Pennywise, if you don't mind.
Pre-Pennywise. Well, I grew up here in Manhattan Beach, Hermosa Beach, California, which is considered the South Bay of LA. Grew up a huge Dodgers fan. I heard that's relevant to the program. So my dad was a air cargo sales rep. So he had to wine and dine clients. And one of the ways that he did that is grab his son and take their son to Los Angeles sporting events. So in the late 70s, early 80s, I was at Laker games, Kings games, Dodger games, Angels games. I saw a lot of sports, and very fortunate to be. I went to the World Series with the Dodgers twice. Did the kind of things that were really cool, like I met some of the players, things like that. But we'll get into all that. But yeah. Basically, grew up here at the beach, so did a lot of surfing, a lot of beach activities. I always say some days I had 3 square meals in the sand. And so total beach kid. I've got the sunspots on the nose to show for all the sunburns I got over the years, but had a great upbringing, great family. And then really coming from this area, so many great punk bands came from Hermosa Beach, the Descendants, Black Flag, Circle Jerks. Another band called The Last kind of kicked it off. But having all that great music around me was, real easy for me to go down to Peer Music and get myself a guitar and start playing. And in high school, I figured out pretty early that I was never going to be a professional baseball player or a professional surfer. So I knew I had to try and be a professional something. So I went after the guitar more than anything, and somehow wound up meeting some of the local guys Jason I grew up with around the block, and we started this band Pennywise, and it just happened really fast after that.
When did you guys?
I went to college, went to San Diego State, and then finished at UCLA. So that was in there too.
Did you start? You started Pennywise after UCLA?
Probably right as I was graduating. Right when that was going down, we started playing backyard parties and stuff like that.
So is that how it starts? I mean, you get your buddies together and you start playing, and you're playing at parties, and it just kind of takes off from there.
Yeah, I'd been in bands in high school, and we'd always played little parties, and when those were going on, we were playing cover songs, and it was kind of like, you're so young, it was so nerve-wracking, and like, were people going to throw stuff at you, and or ignore you? The first show that we played in my first band, we played to my 4 best friends and their mom. So that's the only people that were there. And it kind of, when I was in college, we started playing the fraternity circuit, so we had some bigger parties and things like that. But I remember with Pennywise, it came together pretty fast, where we they had written some songs and had a singer that was in the band for a little bit. Then I came in and joined after I was playing in this other local band, and we played our first party, and it was just mayhem from the first note, and a crazy fight broke out. The cops were there within 3 minutes. We probably got 3 songs done in 3 minutes, but it was just like, it was already pretty infamous around town, like, wow, Pennywise played, and it was just crazy. And the next 2 times we played after that, it just got bigger and bigger. And then someone asked us to do a record. Our friend Mark Peter at Theologian, we did an EP, and then that got to Epitaph. And so it really was only about I think under a year of playing shows before we already got signed. So it was that quick.
So you guys signed with Epitaph, right? And then was the first album, was it Pennywise? Was that the self-titled album?
Yeah, we call it the Blue Album, but yeah, the self-titled Blue Album. Yeah.
So not to I don't mean to go back this far, but it's funny. I remember when I was in 5th grade in Huntington Beach, my buddy gave me a Circle Jerks tape. And I was like, all right, these guys are cool. Like, I really like them. And then after, I told him I liked it, he gave me the Pennywise tape. And I remember going to 5th grade, and I'm sitting in the back of the car, like reading the lyrics inside of the tape thing. It was the coolest thing. And so for some reason, Homeless and Open Door always like stood out to me, because I just remember reading those lyrics when I was a young kid.
That's really cool. I love that you say tape,
Yeah.
we're from the cassette tape generation. And I recently did a book. I was part of a book that was about bands that influenced you. And I listen to all kinds of music. And I was a really big fan of kind of more of an indie rock band called The Replacements. Probably a lot of people heard of them. But I distinctly remember being at San Diego State and going to the local warehouse store and buying that cassette tape and looking at it in my car and unwrapping it, and I'd never heard them before, and then putting them in the tape deck of my Datsun B210, and it was just like, I love this band. The lyrics hadn't even started yet, and I just dug it, and it's so cool to have that memory of where you're like, man, I can almost remember the smell of the car and all those touchstones of that moment where you're like, all right, this something clicked, like this is really cool. And I've kept a couple old cassette tapes around here. I got a stack of them over there in the corner, but of all the kind of ones that meant something to me, and it's cool to have those. Actually, there's been a few record labels these days that have started bringing back the old cassette tapes. Burger
Really?
Records down in Huntington started doing that because I think they just want to like hold on to something before it gets put into the computer, and just try and hold on to it for a little while before it becomes ones and zeros. So I always thought that was kind of cool.
I was going to ask you that later, but like, how did you feel, or how did that affect whether the band or just music industry as a whole, of that transition from tapes and CDs going into like digital downloads? Because I remember being a young kid and going to Tower Records or Blockbuster Music, and like, you're so stoked when your favorite band is coming out with a new album, and you can walk in there and you can see it sitting on the shelf, and it's so exciting that it's there and you can grab it and you go pay for it, versus like going online and clicking for it and you put it on a credit card. Like, but how did outside of that, like, how did that change just the industry as a whole?
It was revolutionary, and not in a good way, because not the same as you. I spent so much time at Tower Records over in Torrance, and at the Music Plus that used to be up here on PCH. And I remembered in '77, I bought the Sex Pistols album solely on going up and down the aisles and seeing a brightly colored album, and it's called the Sex Pistols. And I'm like, that looks like something I'd like. I mean, I had no idea what a Sex Pistol was or what any of it was. I just said, oh, that looks like something I'd be into. And I bought it and went home, and life-changing,
Yeah.
And so that experience of finding a band out that way, instead of finding that it's got 3,000 likes on some page, is a much more organic way to find a band. So I feel that that's missing. Also, it's been tough on musicians because people who want to do this for a living, and you've lost all that revenue from downloading and stuff like that. So it makes it hard on bands. Only the bands that can really base their career on touring can make it these days. So it wasn't great, put it that way, but you kind of have to live with what it is now.
Yeah, that seems it seems like it definitely took its toll, I guess, overall, just for fans in general. I mean, like, you just feel like physically when you have that album in your hand, like you're a part of something that the band made, instead of just clicking on it. It just takes away from it a little bit. But I guess.
Oh yeah, I know. I still buy albums, and I still pay for all my music. I've never illegally downloaded anything. I feel like, there's so many different ways that could create upheaval in any industry. If someone finds a way to counterfeit tickets to baseball games, or if someone finds a way to do this, the people, you can't put the games on anymore. It's just the fact of life, and it's unfortunate, but the computer has done damage in so many ways. I think people are starting to wonder if it's even worth it. It's mucked up a lot of stuff out there. But at the same time, I think there's still good music being made. There's still people that pick up the guitar and just want to write a song and let their song be heard. And so as long as people are still doing that, and they can't turn me or my guitar into a computer chip, I should be okay for a little while longer.
Is that, I don't know how to word this, but like, is that a way or a thing that you see with especially punk bands, or people who are in the music industry for the right reasons, I guess you'd say, like to go out and make good music versus having like that other goal of like making money? Everybody wants to make money, support their family, all that, but like just the goal of making good music and putting out good music that people are going to enjoy listening to. Like, that to me seems like a really fun way to go about your business on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always said, like, I graduated from college and got a job at my dad's air cargo place that he worked, and I got a job in the advertising industry, and another at another like spot buying place, and although, you know, hey, everyone's got to find a place to work and everyone's got to find their way through life. I knew from a very young age that what I really wanted to do was play music, and the first time we had a really good show, a backyard party where like all the jocks were there, all the surfers were there, all the chicks were there, and no one's paying any attention to me at all. I'm a fly on the wall, and then all of a sudden we play that first song, and all of a sudden everyone's looking at me, you know, and it really does something to you. And I know athletes, it's the same way. It's like that pressure comes on, and you start to like feed on that pressure, and it can be a do or die type of thing. Like either it's kind of like that danger of getting up there, and either you're going to succeed or fail, and it takes just tons of work. But I think anything that's worth it, you have to have that. You got to have, I've always said it, inspiration, motivation, perspiration, in that order. You know, you gotta have the desire, and then you got to follow it up with work, lots of work. And I wouldn't call music work, but at the same time, you have to put in the time. You gotta, like, I can remember being in the garage and my friends pounding on the door wanting to go surfing or go party, and I'd be like, hey, I got to write another song. I've written 2 already, got to write the 3rd one today, you know. And I have crates and crates of songs on cassette tapes that will never see the light of day, but it takes a lot of work to be successful in anything.
So if that's like your goal, to write good music and be successful in terms of making good music, like what is that like when that first album gets out there, the Blue Album's out, you know, now people are buying it and there's sales, and like, what's that like for you? Is there a moment where it kind of hits you like, this is a real thing, people dig us, like this could continue going in a upward direction?
Yeah, you know, there was different parts of it, I think, that happen is when, like, even like the first time playing a song in the studio, you're like, hey, this sounds really good. Like, even I would like this, even though I'm the one playing it. Like, we've got something here, you know. Like, I remember watching Fletcher play guitar, and Byron on the drums was just playing a million miles an hour, and Jason was writing these really cool songs, and then I would sing them, and like together, I'm like, wow, this sounds really good. And wait till they hear this, you know, that type of thing. And then, you know, when you play the parties and people come, and then you get the record deal. I remember Fletcher and Jason came to my house and saying, hey, we just went up to Epitaph and they want to sign us to a deal. It's like your hair stands on end. You're like, wait, I'm going to be doing this for real. And yeah, and then you see the artwork, you go in the studio, and all that becomes magic. And it just kind of becomes this slow build of like each little milestone of you going like, okay, wow, this is real. This is really happening. And then for me, it was quitting my day job. I had my suit and tie job out at a cable TV company selling ad sales. And I went to the sales meeting like on the Friday afternoon, you know, and I can remember telling my boss, like, I think I'm going to quit and go on tour to Europe. And he's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do right now. And I just kind of told him. He couldn't believe it. He's like, okay, that's really strange. Like, yeah, I'm going to go with my punk band. And luckily, my wife, my family, my dad were all supportive of it. And that was a big part of it. You know, I couldn't, if all of them would have been saying, dude, don't quit your day job, I would have had something to worry about. But I think if you get the record deal and people behind you and want to put your stuff out there, you got a good shot at it.
So your first album comes out, and like you say, you quit your day job. Like, this is a real thing, you know, like, we're going to do this. We're going to go to Europe. We're going to tour. We're going to make more music. How does that, I guess, that idea in your mind or overall as a band, like as you're making more music, you know, is there an idea that you have to grow or change as a band, or is there an effort, like a consistent effort to try and stay consistent with the music you're putting out if the last album was successful, or is there a need to show that there's growth or change in the style, or just an overall theme of the music?
Yeah, that's a kind of been a constant struggle, especially for bands in our genre, especially, because when you buy a Metallica album, you're not buying a Metallica album to get a polka album or a reggae album. You want to hear Master and Puppets, you want to hear Kill 'Em All, and you want to get fired up, and you want to hear distorted guitars, and you want to hear exactly what you came for. But within that, I think you can have variations on the theme. And, Metallica can put out more of a ballad that is within their style. And so I think that is a challenge of for most bands, is that you got to try and stay within the realms of what your fan base is willing to accept, and save the experimentation for your side projects and solo albums and stuff like that. But that being said, there are some bands that have been successful in reinventing themselves, but I would say it's definitely the exception to the rule, that there's not very many bands who have completely changed styles mid-career and were able to keep their following,
From like a process perspective, what comes first? Do you write the song? Do you write the lyrics? Or do you write the music and then put the lyrics to it? Like, what is that process like in terms of songwriting with matching the lyrics with the music?
It's different for everybody. And I've actually just been doing some songwriting sessions with a friend of mine's son named Cooper Jones. Great kid. He's got Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, and great songwriter. And been kind of going through my process with him. And you can check him out at cooperscure.org, by the way. But for me, it's always been the same way. It's picking up that guitar, strumming some chords, staring at the wall, and just going, putting some chords together, putting a chord progression together, maybe just playing one note, and what's going to come to me, what's this going to be about? It's kind of like, not to sound like a hippie, but it's like opening yourself up to that creative flow to come in and kind of take over. And for me, it's been like getting a few chords together and then kind of humming something that sounds like it fits within that chord progression. And then it's kind of coming up with a key word or phrase that you feel goes with that, or a vibe that goes with that. And then you got to find a hook in there, something that kind of ties it all up. But leading up to that time, there's so much stuff that inspires you to get to that point, which is this stack of records right here of The Clash and Bad Religion and Black Flag and Descendants and all these bands and what they've done, and using that as a leaping off point for what you want to do. And then lyrically, all these books that I have around here of just different ideas you have in your head, want to get out there. And that's what it's been like for me. Other people, they might write some lyrics first and then try and fit the notes around that. And might be a different methodology, but that's how it's always worked for me, is just getting in the garage with the guitar and letting it rip.
There's so many songs you guys have that are so very positive songs. And the I have I have a 20-25 minute drive to work every day. So I have my playlist, for going to work, and just, it's my time to not be on the phone, and, it's early in the morning. And so you guys, there's 3 Pennywise songs I'm always playing every day. One is every single day. Unknown Road and It's Up to You. And it's just there's a message in every one of those songs that is, it's very positive. It's very uplifting, and it turns for me into, controlling your own actions, your own day, and being the person who decides your own fate based off of your actions and how you do things. And I think a lot of them go in that direction. And for me, there's just such a positive feel to the songs in general that are just, they're if you take the time and like listen to the lyrics, they're super uplifting.
Mm-hmm.
I was, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no. I want to finish your thought though.
But I always do wonder like where, you know, like where that inspiration comes from. And like you said, books and other albums that you've heard. And, you know, but overall, how into whether it's things that are happening socially or politically or just overall with like the themes of the country or just the state of the world, like how often do those things kind of creep in and help kind of drive your lyrics that you're writing?
Well, that's a good point, because for me, I'm going through high school and stuff. You know, I was like any other kid. I just wanted to have fun and go crazy, and books and learning wasn't a big part of it for me. But it wasn't until I got to UCLA and I had a teacher at El Camino first, who was the first guy I had written a paper. And he said, like, what are you going to do with your life? You really need to, you're a good writer. You should do something, you know, with your talent. And I'm like, I never thought about it. And it wasn't until I discovered American Transcendentalism, which is Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, stuff like that, which is it's American philosophy that's all about the individual and looking to yourself for the answers. Even though it was in a religious context, they were kind of separating themselves from too much authoritarian religion. And so they were really saying, like, the genius is inside of you and you really need to look to yourself for the answer. And that is true genius, is when you take in everything that people have told you, but then you make your own choices of what's right and what's good. And then also looking to nature, and that you can find a lot of the answers in nature. And all that just really struck home with me. And it was really positive and uplifting and inspiring. And you'll see like Gandhi and MLK, a lot of great peacemakers and important minds cite Emerson and Thoreau as big influences. So that was like a real awakening for me, like spiritually and intellectually, to like, I wanted to create stuff that was positive and cool. And that's why it was it resounded so much when I got with the guys in Pennywise, because Jason was really into bands like 7 Seconds and Dag Nasty and Minor Threat, who had songs with positive messages. So to have something that I already loved, which was punk rock and fast music, and then this positive PMA, positive mental attitude philosophy, and put that together into one mix, it was like, wow, this is a recipe for, you know, the perfect music for me to get into. And then once I got into the band, then the songs just started coming and coming. And I know for sure every single day, I've said that many, many times, that I feel like that's probably one of the best that we can do as far as a song, where it's one that Fletcher wrote the guitar part almost completely, top to bottom, just came in like, look, I've got this song and this is a progression. And I listened to it and I wrote it from top to bottom as you read it now. You know, like there was never any editing or whatever. It's just like, it just came pouring out of me. And we like recorded it that day. And it was, you know, it's just an example to me of just a statement of being like, I can't change the past, can't predict the future. All that matters is today and the 24 hours I have right now, and I'm going to try and make the best of those. But it's probably going to be impossible. So I can't, I can't change what's going to happen, but I'm going to do my best for today. And these songs, people, I had buddies like, oh, you preach too much, you know, in your lyrics. And I'm like, man, I'm preaching to myself. I'm not preaching to you. I'm not preaching to anyone listening. I'm trying to convince myself of this stuff and to not have regrets and to not worry too much about the future. And good luck with that.
It's like there's not a song that speaks more loudly personally to me than that does. I bought that picture there the day it came out because I
saw that.
It was awesome. I mean, and it just that the song in general, like, let's like start over and live every single day. Like that's, I mean, let's do it in the morning because when I'm going to work, like you have to like start over and do it again. And do it the best you can, live the best you can, do it the right way, do it the best way. And when it's over, you can't do anything to change it, and then start over and do it again the next day. And and you can avoid monotony in that sense, I think, and try to make each day the best you can. And it's just funny to me that I remember the first time I saw you guys live was in Reno, and it was like, I think it was Strung Out and Ignite opened up. And, it's like, this is my first time seeing you guys. And I remember hearing the lyrics, and it's fast, and like and you see bodies in the mosh pit, like all over the place. And it's this like dichotomy, I guess, of this really positive message and this fast paced thing. It's like, you're getting out the angst, but staying positive about it. Like, it was just such a cool overall experience. I just can't even you can't describe it if you've not been there. It's awesome.
I know, and I got a front row seat to it. That's what I love about it. I get to see all the chaos, and it is a very combustible element that gets put together in that environment. You get, and I remember feeling it as a kid and going to shows and just being like, this, it's almost like an animal. It's like it's like the crowd is there, and everyone's milling around and getting ready, and the anticipation is there. And then the band kicks in, and it's just like, wow, we are a big mass of adrenaline right now. That's the only way I can put it. It's like, but I've talked about it before. It's kind of like one of the most righteous ways to get out pent-up aggression, because let's face it, we all have aggressions with, whether it's the person not moving fast enough in front of you, or the jerk at the grocery line, or the whatever. And we all have to rein all those in, and we're supposed to, and that's good, because you never know. You got to have compassion for people. You don't know why this guy's driving slow in front of you. Maybe anything's going on. You don't know why this person in the line is, maybe she's having the worst day of her life. So give everyone a break. But that stress and that tension stays in there. And it's kind of like, so you're telling me I can just go into this group of people and we can cross-check each other, and I can get some of this pent-up aggression out. This is going to be the coolest day of my life. And I still have a broken nose from a mosh pit experience, where all I know is I was in the pit, and I saw someone backpedaling against me, and he got pushed at the last minute, and I just saw white, man. A dark club just turned white. And when I finally shook myself, I saw my nose was in front of my face, was in front of my right eye. And I was like, that's not good. I think your nose is supposed to be in between your eyes, not in front of one of them. And I've got 2 ribs broken from stage dives, and I wouldn't take any of it back, even though I'm a little uglier and I creak a little bit more when I walk around. It's a righteous way to let out some aggression, and just everyone be safe out there.
Yep. And then the best part is the dude that just smoked you is now picking you up off the ground and going, "Hey, you good?" And then they get back to it.
Yeah, I'll get you back later, but I'm good.
We'll be back around. But I saw you guys in Vegas, and it was my 33rd birthday, and I left there that night, and I said, I'm never doing that again. I'm in so much pain right now. My body hurts, and I can't do it. But I did.
I know. My neighbor around the block is he charges, and he's my age, and he still charges, and he's always coming home, and I always see him out there, and I'm going, dude, you're going to be feeling this in the morning. I know you look happy right now, but you're going to be calling me in the morning.
Not going to last.
But it's worth it.
So one of the things I was curious about with your touring, I mean, you guys have gone to some really cool places. I have to imagine that you've in your time touring that some of the spots you've been able to go to have just been incredible. And I love to travel. I love going to Europe. I'm curious, where are some cool places that you have gotten to go with Pennywise? And also, when you're touring, like, do you get an opportunity to go and see those places? Like, do you get to go enjoy, those cities at all, do sightseeing, or, go out and explore the local cuisine, or, bars or what have you?
Yeah, being a beach kid, I always would gravitate towards the places that would have the beach. And so definitely the many times we've been to Australia and New Zealand, and being able to surf in a foreign country has been just the most awesome thing. And, or just even just to go sit on the beach, it feels like you're back home again. And when you're homesick, So Australia, New Zealand were huge. Parts of Brazil, and getting to experience a different culture. And you know what? I really think if more people in this country traveled a little more,
Yes,
and got to see the rest of the world, we wouldn't have half of the problems that we have now. And they really need to see how fragile our society is, and that we need to really be careful with it. And because certain places I've been to, and you see the extreme wealth and the extreme poverty and the lawlessness that can go on, and all this type of stuff, it really opens your eyes and see how easily something like that could happen here. But through the years, there's been so many, it's almost too many to recount, of the crazy nights. Usually it's after the show that we'll go out. So there's been times we've been in Japan, and you wind up in some bar that's the size of this room, but it's a fully shaped bar, and you're there until 4 a.m, and just too many tales of debauchery to recount. I remember a story we've often told. We went to Alaska one time, and this is when we were really into snowboarding. We went with Blink-182 and Unwritten Law, and this is before both of those bands got big, and we had just started getting popular and stuff. But we went to play like a X Games, or I don't even think the X Games were around yet. It was some kind of like extreme sports snowboarding contest up in Valdez. And it just so happened that they had whiteout conditions, and it was like, it's unsafe to go anywhere. It's completely blizzard. But we're like, well, we don't care. We still want to go. We came all the way to Alaska. We're going snowboarding somewhere. So we talked a cat driver who was just driving down the freeway or down the highway, in this mountainous area. And we were like, we'll each give you everything in our pockets to just take us up the hill somewhere. And so he's like, all right, I'll take you anywhere. You guys are idiots, but sure. And he just drove us in this huge cat tractor, took us as far as he could until he was about to roll over backwards. And we went, we just had all of us just cruising down in whiteout conditions, huge powder. And then at one point we were like, do we go to the right or go to the left? Like, we didn't even know where we were. We were completely just on our own, a bunch of California boys in Alaska. And once we got down, we talked to a local, and they said, if you would have gone right where you guys went left, you would have dropped right into a crevasse and never to be heard from again, and we're just like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's good. We didn't do that.
God.
So there's been a lot of adventures on the road, and a lot of good times, and and then those make up for the days when you're just, a lot of times it's just, okay, I'm downtown Minneapolis, and I'm going to go to Subway and get a sandwich, and then maybe I'll look at the Walmart store and walking around. So sometimes there's not a whole lot to do but sit there and wait for the show and let the activity happen then.
Okay, so that was going to be my next question. And I always think about this because of mainly because of baseball. Like, people are kind of surprised at what a day in the life of a baseball player is like, in terms of that day, the preparation, when they get to the field, the stadium, before the game, what they've got to do, getting ready, and then they play, and then the stuff they got to do after. What is a show day like for you? Is there do you get to the venue early? What kind of preparation do you have to do? Are you putting your kids to bed and then heading out and, going to sing? Like, what does that day look like?
It's funny because I'm sure it's the same way in sports, but everyone's totally different.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of have to do what works for you. And for me, it's an extremely boring day in the sense that it's usually wake up in whatever town you're in at the hotel, do some business, answer some emails because we've all got various business dealings and whatnot. Talk to the kids at home, make sure everyone's cool there. Try and get your meals in, and not go crazy of going the junk food route and whatnot, and trying to keep a good diet going. And then mind you, this is later in the career. Early in the career, it might have been a little different. The first van tour might have been, have a Bud Light for breakfast, have some cigarettes for lunch, and hopefully get some beef jerky for, and then, but later on, when you're starting to take it a little more seriously and you're not 21 anymore. Yeah, it's just getting ready for the day, taking care of your domestic necessities, checking in with the wife and kids. Definitely having the video conferencing, stuff like that has really helped. I know a lot of people know that it's when you live a life on the road, it's been really good having being able to see the other person and see my kids. So and then for me, there in the music world, and I bet the same for the athletes world, you have the type of guys who they want to be there before the groundskeepers get there. They want to be there. They're in the park early. They want to work out. They want to get in the zone. They want to do, and they want to prep and do all that. And that's what works for them. And then there's the other guy comes in last minute, maybe forgot his gear bag, is more like, I just want to get out there and I'm confident I have my stuff. And sometimes that guy doesn't put the pressure on himself, so he's more loose and is able to go in there and have a better show or a better performance. So everyone's different, but for me, it was always a thing where I didn't want to go too early, and not that I'm antisocial, but a lot of times it meant I'd have to be talking and arranging so many people, whether it's a guest list, you become like the party host,
Sure.
And so for me, it was easier to always just kind of show up right before showtime, kind of get psyched up, maybe warm up the voice a little bit, and then get out there and do it. Because I want there to be that immediacy of the show. And it's something that I've always tried to do, which is I want to mean every word that I say. I don't want this to be a job and have any kid or person out there think that I'm just phoning it in. It's like it all comes right from the heart through the veins in my neck out through my head and my voice. It's like I want people who came to hear the music to know that I believe it and I mean it, and I'm not there to worry about who's on the guest list or do this type of BS on the side. My day is my day, and then that time of the day is meant to be the real immediate performance, and just try and go balls out as much as I can at this old age.
You've been doing this a long time, but do you still get nerves when you get up there? Or did you ever?
No.
Really?
And that's kind of I think that's kind of the weird thing. Fletcher, our guitar player, all 6'5", 250 pounds of him he's lost some weight. So that's his birthday today. Happy birthday, Fletcher.
Oh.
He's the biggest, toughest guy out there, and he gets nervous as hell. He's like, oh, gotta take a nervous pee. And he's pacing around and he's yelling at people, and he loses his shit before every show.
Really?
And I just kind of show up and, what songs are we playing? All right, where's the list? Okay, let's go. And I think I've just been a fatalist in that sense of going, you know, I think from the first time it's like, hey, well, this is what I want to do, and you asked for it, and you know, and you're here, and it's exciting for me when something goes wrong, or one of the guys forgets something. Like that's something that's kind of funny. So instead of being worried that I know that we've been playing so long that we have the ability to play the songs.
Mm-hmm.
What's out of my control, and the only thing that I ever get nervous about is I definitely am concerned about the safety of the fans. And as much as I love the mosh pit and stage diving and people doing stuff, I'm always kind of looking around like, hey, is someone going to try and jump off something? Or, hey, that girl's down there, looks like she's getting crushed, you know, so that's the only thing that can take me out of my game is I want everyone to be safe. I got kids now, and maybe before I was willing to jump off a speaker into the crowd, but not anymore because I broke someone's nose doing that one time, and that was the last time I did that.
I have to, I mean, yeah, I have to imagine when you're up on the stage and you're looking down, you're seeing everything, right? Like, and even, I mean, I've seen how many shows at House of Blues, whether Anaheim or, you know, Vegas or whatever, like you get the little, that awning thing over the top and they're hanging right over the people. And that's gotta be, because, you know, it takes one person to go, oh, I could totally make this. You know?
We've had too many of those, and we stop it right away now because we've been in a couple situations where you get into some legal issues and it ain't good, and no one likes to be in a room with lawyers mad at you.
No, or in general, probably. All right, so 2009 you left the band, right?
Yep.
Which I will say, as a fan, that news was crushing. But I was an Ignite fan, so hearing Zoli was going to be stepping in was, I guess, the second best option. You know, I watched The Other F Word, which I'd never seen actually up until about a week ago. I read Punk Rock Dad, but I'd never seen The Other F Word. That was super interesting. I really liked that. But cool. was that it for you? Were you done? Like, were you ready to be done with it?
No, I'll tell you, to be quite honest, there's been a lot of different speculation and people trying to control the narrative of what happened there. But it was basically a situation where I felt we had just put out an album on a new record label. We had just toured more than we'd ever toured. And we had just done a tour that was sponsored by a company, and I just think things had gotten where we, as the Brits say, we had lost the plot a little bit, like, and things were going a little too crazy in the studio and on the road. Like, there was just, we needed to take a break from each other, you know, and I just said, hey, you know, I want to take a break, you know, and they're like, well, we want to go on the next tour, you know, we're not stopping, you know, and it was kind of like, you know, not to get on the therapist couch, but I was like, wow, you know, all right, I'd like to take a break right now, and you guys are saying either take a break or we'll go without you. It's like, well, thanks a lot, you know. And so some wounded pride there made me go like, all right, I guess I'm taking off for a while. And they decided to do what they did. And, you know, and at the time I was like, hey, I told them straight up, I go, hey, I just, if I'm going to go, I'll probably put out my own record ended up doing the Black Pacific, and then, you know, I'll do whatever. And so it was kind of like we just kind of left and didn't talk to each other for the entire time out of it. And but it wasn't until it's kind of crazy because right at the time when I started thinking, I want to be what it would be like if I got back in the band, because you have to understand, I live a mile from Fletcher and Byron. We went to the same high school, you know, we have the same friend group. We have, you know, there's so much history in this town. It's a small town. It's not like, you know, for that, it was definitely like being in a divorce. Everyone had to pick a side of whether you're with Jim or you're still with
Sure.
Pennywise, and it was rough on everyone, and it was more like me just going like, I just want this to stop, like let's get, maybe we should just get back together and we'll just wing it from there. And it was like, I want to say the day that thought crept through this ear and in my mind, I got a phone call from Fletcher like that day, like, hey, let's go have a beer. And he's like, what do you think? And it was like, it was that easy, and I think that it was something that was needed for me, and just for my sanity, and we've always been 4 headstrong dudes, and we do the best we can. It's never easy. I to keep equating it with the athlete world, it's, hey man, you have your teammates, but then there's going to be times where there's issues. Issues can come up, and unless you have a really good leader or someone who can force the band to communicate on a adult level and on a way that's constructive, the resentments are going to form, and unless you can communicate, you're screwed.
I mean, I can only
what happened.
I can only imagine. I being part of teams and coaching teams, you get to that point, whether it's the season or whatever, where it's like, what, if I see you again tomorrow, I'm gonna probably kill you. I can't even look at you. You know what I mean? Like, because you're with those people so much, and
then you have to get on the bus with that person the next day and drive 500 miles with them. And the last person you want to see, because you just had a fight last night, is now you're busting nuts with them in the hallway of the bus.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and because I've the last few years I've been able to travel, and I travel with some friends of mine, and it's like, man, at the end of that, I don't want to talk to you for like 2 weeks, and then after that we're gonna be fine, but we need some time.
You can imagine 20 years, and that's basically what it was then at that point. And we were at that point for me, and I just really wish we would have just said like, hey guys, let's just take a break and not and give each other some time for a while, and so yeah, you're absolutely right. It does. There's probably this whole COVID thing has been terrible for everyone, but and that's a giant understatement. But for us, it was a time to give each other some space, and which was much needed, and be with our families. And I think that's extremely necessary. And I would one day like to put out some type of roadmap for bands, and only because I feel like we're a band that did it so wrong that there needs to be a manual for people out there of how to do it right. And probably there is something like that, but it's the same thing for sports and stuff. And if you're not communicating, there's resentments are going to form. It's natural. And like when you talk to about like, hey man, someone's getting on my nerves. Instead of people just letting someone get on your nerves or something, it'd probably be better if we all just said, hey, you know what, man? I need like 10 feet of space from you right now.
Yeah.
No hard feelings and nothing personal, and maybe it's all me, but I'm just going to communicate with you. And that is that we need separation. You got to keep it separated. I guess that's
a song. They weren't wrong. Dexter he was onto something.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe, I always thought that had to do with probably prison cells, because that's what they do. Like, let's put this guy in solitary for a while he figures his stuff out. But it's it's something where once again I'll always take it back to communicate. And we actually went to a band therapist a couple of years back and did some talking, and I think probably some bands need more than that, more than they think they do, and this is why you see so many bands breaking up and things happening like this. It's really tough for unique individuals to paint a picture together. and then
Yeah.
also open a bank account together
Yeah.
and cash checks together. It's quite an undertaking, but it's worth it in all the end.
Yeah. Okay. I don't want to crush you with Pennywise questions because I do want to talk the other side, but I'm curious, what is Brohim like from the stage? Because when you're on the floor, when Brohim starts, there's this feeling that comes over everybody there. Like they know what it is. They know like this is it. This is the last song. And like there's just a feeling that comes over the entire crowd. I don't care who you are. I don't care how many times you've seen you guys play. But what is that like from the stage? There's always people up there. I mean, what is that like?
Oh man, it's kind of something that happened spontaneously over the years and has been every level of crazy. But being inside the song and knowing what it's about the spirit of having friends and friendships and people who have passed on and just wanting to remember that spirit of friendship, of knowing like, man, this song is resonating with these people, and it doesn't matter who you are, and you've lost somebody, it doesn't, it's somewhere down in your life, there's someone who's gone that you miss, or there's someone who passed tragically, and if it hasn't yet happened yet, it will, knock on wood. And there's a feeling that comes over you of just wanting to capture that emotion and spend it with your friends. And it does go back to every single day of like, hey man, let's live every day like it's our last while we're still here, because you never know which one will be your last. So if you can encapsulate all that feeling and put it into a song and just have people say, whoa, 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 3 times, there's something about that formula that makes exactly what you're talking about happen everywhere we play. So that's a great feeling.
There's actually right up here, I've got a picture of my brother and I when I was coaching him in high school. My mom got me that picture, and on the top it says, "Brotherhood's our rule we cannot bend." And like, it's my absolute favorite thing. She knew that was, my song. And like, I will tell you, I was going to tell you this before, but like one of my favorite memories with my brother, I took him to his first ever concert, and it was you guys, and it was in Reno where I went to college, and it was January of 2002. And we were 4 months after September 11th. And it was like really our first time in a large crowd. And I mean, you remember, like, things were a little weird back then. And, a lot of uncertainty. And there was a part where you said the song goes out to Osama bin Laden. And my brother is like 13, and he's standing up on like the little security thing, and he's got middle fingers up in the air. And there's, I told my mom, like, I'm gonna take good care of him, don't worry. And here's Nick at a Pennywise show with his middle fingers up in the air. Just one of the coolest memories I have at a Pennywise show. So it was one of my favorites.
That's great.
I will say. Yeah,
I have a way with words sometimes in those situations. Sometimes you just have to be very direct, and I find that that's the best method for me. I've never been like the Vandals or anyone. I'm not a stand-up comedian, but I know when to say fuck someone.
yeah. There's a time and place, and like, have at it. I mean, why not? Do you have last Pennywise question, and then we'll move on. Do you have a favorite song that you enjoy when you know it's coming up that you're going to be singing?
Probably the easier ones. I'll tell you what, Every Single Day might be my favorite song. It's a barn burner to play. I don't think there's a split second in that song where I'm not huffing and puffing, because it's a lot of words and sentiment to get out. And I have to, when I come out of after the show, I usually have a headache after every show, because like the bones in my head have been flexing for an hour and a half, and it's like, that's a tough one. But I don't know if it probably is Brohim, but just because, I know what to expect in that song, and it's going to be a huge communion of souls, who are going to be regardless of who you are and what your walk is in life. It's the universal thing of community and trying to remember the good times and just that whole spirit of the song that comes out, and it's like the exclamation point at every show. So it has to be Grow Him.
Okay, all right, that's it. I'm not gonna ask any more Pennywise. I apologize. I was
all right. That's the
uh,
subject I know the best, so I'm good with it.
Yeah, no, and it's cool because I've gotten an opportunity to talk to people in baseball, and I've gotten an opportunity to talk to people in whiskey, and those are things I'm interested in. And reach out to you because like my favorite band ever, and it's like, well, if I can get an opportunity to talk to you, like that'd be really cool. But I know nothing about like the music industry or that kind of thing, so it's really cool to hear like how you prepare yourself, and there is that tie-in, the correlation to sports, and I don't care if it's like I found it with people that own whiskey distilleries, like that correlation to working with a team, whether it's a band, a team, a group at a distillery, like you're going to have ups and downs. You're going to have fights. I mean, I've seen some of the best fist fights between teammates, or it just happens, but you get through it because everybody's got a common goal, and it makes it even better when you're producing a product that is that's quality and you fought your way through it. And I think it's really cool. So it's really cool. So I appreciate that. But all right. So growing up in LA, going to Dodger games, who was your player? Who's your guy? Like, did you have a favorite guy, favorite player, or like a couple of ones, or who's your guy?
For sure. My favorite Dodger player of all time was Steve Yeager.
Really?
Catcher.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I went to the World Series game where he back-to-back home run with God, my memory's going now. It was either Ron Say, but I think it was, or it was Guerrero. But we hit back-to-back home runs. He was the MVP, and I was in Little League. I played catcher for a year. I played all kinds of positions, but I played catcher, and my dad bought me all the catcher gear. I just really dug that, like having all that gear to wear. And so I was a big fan. I wanted to be a catcher. Steve Yeager was the catcher. So I was like, and then I got to go to the World Series where he was MVP, and everything fell into place for Yeager to be my favorite player. I am considering writing a song about Steve Yeager. I don't want it to sound weird, but I wanted to sound more like, of being such a fan of a guy. And plus he was just a rad dude, he was he had the big glasses, and he was such a 70s, 80s dude. And he was by far my favorite player. But that was to me, and I know a lot of my friends who are my age, was just the golden era for the Dodgers before your time. But Garvey, Davey Lopes, Bill Russell, Yeager, Don Sutton, all those just great players, to Hershiser, to Fernando, to obviously I was at the game when Ron Say got beamed and taken off, and just the battle with the Yankees, and just that whole time, that was just huge. And the series with the A's was amazing too. I was on the other side of the field for that one, and just some of the most exciting times of my youth, is going to that ballpark and the whole. I mean, Dodger Stadium is such a beautiful place. It's like one of the nicest looking studios out there, and it's a classic. It doesn't. You see some of these places now, and not to be a hater, but they look more like a mall than a baseball diamond. And and I have friends in the Dropkick Murphys who so I've been to a lot of other baseball stadiums, different places, and seen them and been like, okay, now that's, even though I hate the Green Monster, I always hated that thing. I mean, like, this is cool. Like, this is how it's supposed to look. And I won't say which one I went to, but I was at a rather new baseball stadium, and guys in the crew are like, "We're going to the game. It's right over there." And I'm like, "Well, where's the stadium? Like, what are you talking about?" And they're like, "It's right there." And I'm like, "Where is it?" And then I look through like the facade of what looks like the entrance to I don't know what you would say. It looks like the entrance to a Nordstrom or a Macy's.
I have an idea. I have an
like
idea of what you're talking about.
yeah. And I looked through it, and I see some green grass in the middle of it. And it's just like, that is so weird. I can't imagine a stadium ever looked that way. But yeah, so definitely Steve Yeager was my favorite player, and always will be. And that era was my favorite time. But I'm a true blue fan from the beginning, you know.
You're right. I mean, that era was so great, and like those guys are icons. Like when they're around,
Yeah.
you know, whether it's at fantasy camp or spring training, and Steve Yeager's there, you know, you get to see Steve Yeager and sit down and have a conversation with him, and Steve Garvey, Steve Sachs, and not everybody's named Steve, but like they're all around. And, like
Yeah.
Oral Hershiser's there, and you know, I remember having a conversation with Oral Hershiser about pitch calling, and you know, somebody walks in like, "Well, that was cool," you know, like that's Oral Hershiser. And I mean, some of
Yeah.
those guys were, you know, when you got to watch those guys play, I mean, it's the era was so great. Reggie Smith, I mean, same thing. We got to have a Zoom call last year. All of our minor league managers, we had a Zoom call with Reggie Smith, and just listening to him break it down was so cool. And it's just that era those guys played in was such a pure era of baseball, and those were just badass men that were going to like they're going to compete, and they're going to rip your head off if they had to, and they're it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I remember just thinking, like, I would always equate Steve Garvey with the $6 million man. We had this thing back then, the Bionic Man. He had these forearms, like normal build, and then he had Popeye forearms that were the size. Like he could rope a ball out of the park with the flick of his wrist, like no problem. He had so much forearm strength, and it was just a great time. My dad had box seats right on the first base line, so I got to sit right behind him and see every throw across, you know, every play get run out. And it's like they make it look so easy, but it's such a well-oiled machine, and it was like clockwork. And just to know the discipline that it takes to get into that, and all the hard work. I've had some friends that have various friends that have have gone into not professional all the way yet, but I have one friend who's his son's a hockey player, and hopefully going to be playing with the Philadelphia Flyers. And I know what it takes, man. It takes dedication, and it takes hard work, and you've got to be in great physical shape. And yeah, so it was great to watch that, and to just see the development of that team. And gosh, I mean, Tommy Lasorda, I mean, what is there? We have been so lucky in LA to have some of the best coaches and announcers of all time. And that is Chick Hearn for the Lakers.
No doubt.
And Vince Scully.
Yeah.
Between Chick Hearn and Vince Scully, I really, and if someone can help me do this out there, I want to, because I know we have all the tapes of them playing. So why can't someone do an algorithm that just takes those audio clips? It's a high fly ball, and just insert the new players' names, but Vin can still call the games for us. And same with Chick Hearn, you know. It's the regular play calls, they've got to have every single combination out there. So someone just for me personally, I want to hear a modern Vin Scully game. But then also, you know, I couldn't even watch all the Tommy Lasorda stuff because it hurt too much. And I know it was the same way with all of them. I'm just kind of one of those guys, like, I just rather not watch it because they were such a big part. And Tommy was just one of those coaches or managers that was not afraid to show his emotions. And I hate it in opposing coaches, but I love it
when it's ours. Yeah.
So yeah, those were tough ones, and but I think we've been very fortunate with Jerry West,
Yeah.
with the Lakers, and Pat Riley, and just all these great coaches, great players, and we've been blessed here.
I think I went to the World Series in 17 and 18. And 17, I went to World Series games before for one of the teams in Northern California. I'm not going to mention them, but they were playing the Angels, so I think that was okay. But when you invented retired, and you go out there and it's game one, and you hear him say it's time for Dodger baseball, and like you get chills. Like that is I think anybody that grew up in Southern California watching Dodger games or listening to them on the radio, like when you hear that, that voice is so distinct. And so when you're at the World Series and it's packed and there's so much anticipation, when you hear it's time for Dodger baseball and in his voice, it's like, oh my God, this is incredible. And then Tommy, I mean, the last 2 years in spring training, he's come out and he's sat down, and one of our coaches will come in and he's like, hey, Tommy's over in the equipment room. And you go over there and you sit down with him, and he tells stories, and you listen to everything he has to say. And he is unfiltered and as real as a person can possibly be. And this last year, like I remember he sat down with us and he told us, he goes, when you wear this uniform, you wear it with pride and dignity. And it's like, that's coming from the guy who epitomizes what it means to wear this uniform. So like, you're damn right. When I put this thing on, like, I'm going to be proud of wearing this. It's not any other uniform. It's not anything else, like any other sport. There's a history behind it that you have to love and respect.
Plus, he was like the uncle you never had, and he was just that familiar to you. You feel like, even though he's so venerated and respected, you feel like if he sat down next to you, you'd be telling jokes and or ordering pasta and in no time at all. And those are always the best people out there. And he really made it feel that way. And you just hope that for the band. I mean, that's why I'm bringing it back to being in the band. But as much as talking about us having our breakup time, or when I was out of the band, we definitely had some good times together, and have had some good times together. And I care for the dudes in the band, and we've laughed our ass off, and we've had some times on stage where we appreciate what we have and acknowledge that. So you just kind of hope that, you see that in the times when they've, had their big successes, that they really appreciate what they had and continue to have. Now it seems like things are going pretty good for us again. So good news.
It's a good start. We'll say that. It's a talented team. How was that? How was that for you? I mean, as somebody who's been a Dodger fan for such a long time, like, how was that for you last year, seeing the World Series? And I know you mentioned earlier, like UCLA and getting to the national championship game, and that's your alma mater. And like, it's been a great year for LA sports with, the Lakers, the Dodgers, like UCLA. I mean, how is that for you, seeing that championship since '88 finally happened?
I have a group of friends on social media, and I've gotten less and less vocal about stuff, but I'm still very vocal about my sports, because the political stuff is too much to get into.
Sure.
But as far as sports, I still let it rip. And I have a text group of 3 friends, and we during the seasons, we text all day long. It's not good. Trust me, it's bad, because there's a lot of ripping on each other. Like, you're the biggest idiot to think that was a good call. It's like, you're the biggest moron, and it goes on but the much worse words than moron. I'll put it that way.
I believe it.
But you can imagine with what happened with the Houston.
Yeah.
And I did not take that well as a fan. And big debate on there of how much this happens in baseball, and I wasn't buying that. And so was really felt very, very betrayed. So because I felt the Dodgers deserved it, and more than once. And so I was fighting mad when this, if I don't know what would have happened if they hadn't won this last one. It wouldn't have been good, because you think you've seen rioting before. You would have seen a lot at the Lindberg house. But yeah, so I would say it was equal parts relief.
Yeah, sure.
And then we finally got there, and it wasn't snatched away from us in some cruel fashion as before. Mm-hmm. The time before that, 2 times before that, we were in Australia, and we were giving Fletcher a hard time because we called Fletcher the cooler. Yeah. In the sense that he, whenever we watched the game with him, the Dodgers would lose. Or if he went to the Dodger game, they would lose. So we called him the refrigerator. You know, he cools. You're the cooler. So we ended up, after a while, like just watching it by ourselves in the room, because we didn't want to jinx it. And then when that season went down, that was a tough one. And I think one of the Australian shows was probably not our best show, because we were all so pissed off that they had just lost the World Series. But you can't let that get in the way of the show. But at the same time, it was a long time coming, and it was exciting, man. It was exciting. I love when the Dodgers come back. You know, I love it when they're down. It's always been this thing like, they're they're head and shoulders about everyone else, and then they get down, and then they come back, and like that's always really, it's if a team just blows through and wins it all, it's almost like that was that way in the Final Four. It was funny because USC was playing so good. They were blowing people out, but I was like, that game wasn't even exciting to watch. But the UCLA games, Alabama and then Gonzaga, were 2 of the best basketball games I've ever seen. But I thought SC would, if anyone would have a chance to beat Gonzaga, I thought it would be SC. I never thought we'd come up. So I just, like everyone else, I just want to see exciting sports. Yeah. And I hate the idea of cheaters getting away with it. And so it was a big relief to finally get that win again, and couldn't be happier. And I think there's more to come.
Yeah, they're off to a really nice start, and they're very talented. And it's funny because like people, we'll call them the haters. The haters always want to talk about, well, it was a shortened season, all that. But in reality, like those guys had more to deal with this past year than any other team has ever had to deal with. The COVID protocols were insane. And the fact that they didn't go through any shutdown, they were able to remain on the field. They were able to keep their players on the field. I mean, that to me shows that they went through the discipline that, quite honestly, other teams didn't do, because it wasn't easy. And so, yes, they were the best team, and they were the ones that were able to stay healthy and abide by the protocols that they probably didn't necessarily like or agree with, but they did it for the good of the team.
And focus. I mean, what is it? I'm sure you've been a coach. What does everyone talk about is like keeping your focus. And it's the hardest thing to do, because distractions. Well, what's more goddamn distracting than a good global pandemic? And you're worried about your family. Yeah. You're worried about your family. You're worried about the fans. You're worried about your players. You're worried about yourself getting sick or what's going to happen. And there's so much uncertainty. Talk about losing your focus. It's like someone going like this to you while you're playing, like, here, and hit the ball,
and tell you to focus while you're doing
it. Exactly. So I don't accept that criticism at all. I think they won it. I think they won it in the hardest season ever.
100%.
There should be an asterisk on every other pen except for theirs.
I'll tell you though, I am excited because I'm pretty sure that Monday or Tuesday of next week I get my World Series ring, and that's going to be. That my wife's angry that it costs significantly more than her wedding ring. However, this is a big deal. It's the Dodgers World Series,
honey.
Dodgers World Series, babe.
I know, yeah. Yeah, that's all I gotta say.
Yeah,
You, honey, you're gonna have to go and deal with that somewhere.
yeah. I mean, I still love you, but you know what? Like,
Yeah,
it's a big one.
this is the big one. This is what I worked for.
All right. So last part of it, what do you you mentioned you had yourself a glass of whiskey that was delivered to you.
Uh,
I will
um,
say, I got to tell you though, this is kind of like a cool thing for me that I get to have a whiskey with the lead singer of Pennywise. I mean, that is cool
all
for
right.
me as a fan. What
Yeah.
are you drinking? What is that?
It's funny. I'd never heard of it. My friend, who's got the son who's a hockey player, my friend Darren, he brought me this strange looking bottle, and it's called Angel's Envy.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard of it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a bourbon finished in a port barrel.
Okay.
Yeah, they finish it off. They get a port wine barrel and they finish the bourbon in there.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
And
a nice
it's
one.
damn good.
It's really good. They make a rye that's really good as well.
Okay.
And they've got a cask strength, which is rather expensive. But if you don't like the high proof, it's probably not worth getting. But yeah, it's a good one. I like it.
Yeah. So here, I've been waiting to
Yeah,
do
man.
this.
No doubt. Cheers. Appreciate it. Well, okay. I'm not going to take up your entire day. We've been talking long enough. This is literally like a huge highlight for me. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And truthfully, like how much I appreciate the music that you've made. It is it's an inspiration. I posted a picture the other night on my Instagram of the view with, like our upcoming episode. I try to get people, interested in the episodes. And it's funny how many people I had that reached out that were like, oh my God, like, that's awesome. You're lucky. Like, it's so exciting. Because, and it's funny, they were all from my high school. They were all from high school, from college, a few from college. But like everybody coming from Southern California, because we were probably like in that area, in the late 90s, like we're in batting practice at Edison High School and we've got a Pennywise album playing, and like you go to college and there wasn't as many people that were like familiar with punk rock. So like growing up, I think in Southern California was it makes me think like that punk rock gets more regional as it goes. But like there were so many people that reached out from high school that were like, that is so cool. Like you're going to talk with Jim Lindberg. And so there was a lot of fans that were excited because of the music that you guys put out. That was like a soundtrack of our upbringing. I mean, it really was. So like, I appreciate it. I appreciate the music you guys put out, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. So do I get to check out the Dodger ring at the next show?
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. You guys are coming to Phoenix, right? Aren't you guys coming to Tempe?
Tempe. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, you want to get on the guest list? Is that what that side just heard?
No, it's. I don't know if I can bring a World Series ring to a Pennywise concert. And,
I know I wouldn't either. Maybe you can send me a picture.
Yeah, I'll send you a picture on Instagram. But yeah, I'm gonna have to go and see that because it's been way too long, and I think the angst is definitely ready to go be at a punk rock show.
Yes,
so,
sir. Well, we'd love to have you out, and I appreciate you talking with me about 3 things I love.
Yeah, they're all great things. I appreciate your time.
All right, Anthony.
Jim,
thank you very much.
So much.
And go blue.
Yeah, you got it. Take care.
All right.